My name is Emmanuel Radu, and today I'm going to be talking about the female hormones and the menstrual cycle. So, beginning with the menstrual cycle is a monthly hormonal cycle that women go through every 28 days or so in preparation for pregnancy. This can normally be explained through two different cycles, which include the ovarian cycle, which would be right here, and the uterine cycle, which would be right over here. So, beginning with the ovarian cycle. So, the ovarian cycle is a series of changes in the ovaries that take place in a total of 3 stages, which include the follicular phase, the ovulatory phase, and the luteal phase. Now, beginning with the follicular phase, during this phase, the follicles are growing. The follicles start to develop and they grow from being primary follicles, which would be here, to secondary follicles, and they turn into mature follicles. In this phase, the follicles will just continue to grow. Next is the ovulatory phase, which would have ovulation. So ovulation occurs right dead center, which is about 14 at about 14 days. So during ovulation, ovulation actually occurs when the mature follicle releases from the egg, as you can see in this picture. The egg is releasing from the follicle. This would be the follicle, this would be the egg. So the egg is releasing from the follicle. And this normally occurs due to high levels of LH, or luteinizing hormone. And so when the egg gets released, it goes into the fallopian tube. Now, after ovulation, so after this phase right over there, after ovulation, the follicle actually turns into the corpus luteum, which would be right over here. Now, the corpus luteum is responsible for the production of estrogen and progesterone, which would be right over here. As you can see, progesterone is increasing and estrogen will also increase later on. Then after this, after no egg is being fertilized, it turns into the degenerating corpus luteum, and then it eventually comes the corpus albicans. The corpus albicans doesn't produce anything. Another important thing to note during the ovarian cycle is the hormonal response and its effects. For example, FSH, which would be the follicle stimulating hormone, it's green on this chart, and it actually it promotes maturation and growth of the follicle, so it increases when the follicle is developing and right before ovulation. Next, LH, which is the luteinizing hormone, triggers ovulation, so it increases drastically right before and during ovulation. Now, the uterine cycle, which is right over here on the bottom, is a cycle that occurs in the uterus through 3 phases, which include the menstruation phase, the proliferative phase, and the secretory phase. As you can see in this phase, when estrogen and progesterone are released, the uterine lining is going to be the thickest, right over here, especially the progesterone. You can see that represents kind of like this curve. And estrogen actually promotes the thickening of the endometrium, and progesterone actually helps maintain the thickness of the endometrium. Now, when it comes to thickness, especially in the menstruation phase, in this phase, the endometrium actually decreases in thickness. As you can see, it has a slight decline. Then, when you get to the proliferative phase, the endometrium actually starts to thicken. As you can see, the curve starts to go up. And then when you hit the secretory phase, the thickness of the endometrium actually peaks. So it continues to increase, it peaks, and then it starts to decrease going towards that menstruation phase again. Now, it is important for the endometrium to thicken because it actually is there to make a nice thick home for a potentially fertilized egg. So if there is an embryo starting to grow, this will be there to protect it and hold it as it grows. Now that is everything I had regarding the female hormones and the menstrual cycle and talking about the ovarian and the uterine cycle.